So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I think we've got folks probably arriving from all over the world. My name is Bill Van Hout. I'm actually with Sigma Computing, and I'm calling in from the Eastern time zone in America, Atlanta, Georgia. So it's a bit warmer than I expected today, but what I'm going to be demonstrating to you today is Sigma Computing, a brand new analytics platform. Well, not new, but I think the world needs to know more about the fact that we're a great analytics platform that was built for the cloud, for cloud scale of analytics. I want to start by saying, as you can see here, this is not a slide, but I thought I'd throw it's in our product. I just threw a page with some text just so I could give you some background on me. I'm about to celebrate my second anniversary at Sigma. Before Sigma, I was actually at Snowflake pre-IPO and then through the IPO. Prior to Sigma, I was been with Informatica over 20 years in healthcare IT, and I actually started my career 30 years ago this year with MicroStrategy pre-IPO as well. So one of the things I just want to highlight before I get into the demonstration is why we're different. We were actually built for the cloud. A lot of the BI tools that existed before Sigma were really built to overcome kind of performance challenges and scale challenges of on-premise databases, whereas Sigma was built in the age of the cloud to handle the cloud scale of for analytics. We also built it using a familiar user experience. There's over 1 billion users of spreadsheets every day, Google Sheets, Excel. And so we wanted to use that same kind of familiar user interface so that business users could use an analytics tool and without requiring specialized knowledge of SQL or Python or hundreds of hours to become proficient in a BI tool. And then finally, one of the things that is very unique to us, in fact, uniquely unique to us, is our ability to build data apps with our write back. So every other BI tool out there can do great things to read data from your cloud data warehouse, present it, visualize it, allow you to drill on it. Sigma offers the ability to add to that, the ability to write data back. So think about, and I'm going to demonstrate this, what if I have expert knowledge that I actually want to add to the data that's coming out of the cloud data warehouse and then save that insight for others to be able to view? Sigma offers that capability uniquely. So I'm going to start the demonstration with a dashboard, and you may wonder, it's like, great, so it's another BI tool. Of course, you can do dashboards, right? I've got Power BI, I've got Tableau. Why are you any different? Well, there's a couple things I would point out here before I get into more of the real strong differentiators of Sigma. With a lot of those tools, as I mentioned, where they were built to overcome some of the challenges of on-premise databases, that meant that they built things like import mode or Tableau extracts. It also meant that you had to make trade-offs in the amount of data that you could fit into that dashboard in order to maintain and ensure good performance. With Sigma, because we are built live off of the cloud data warehouse. We by default allow users to drill from any dimension to any dimension. So for instance, maybe I'm looking at a regional product flow and I want to drill from the highest level of this geography dimension to the lowest level of a product dimension, SKU level. And you can see I got that response back very, very rapidly because basically that drill that I just did generated about 100 lines of SQL. Now, I'm pretty proficient at writing SQL, but I can assure you, I couldn't write that level of SQL, get it to respond, and then visualize it in a bar chart that quickly. The other reason I wanted to highlight this is, yes, there are other tools that do dashboarding, but just be assured that if you start with Sigma to do more of your self-service data exploration, at some point you're going to want to tell a story. And so to show you that we've got the advanced visualizations that you would expect, things like Sankey charts and maps and pivot tables. So with that, I'm actually going to shift over and I want to spend the rest of the time really showing how maybe I could start with data and do some self-service exploration of my data and end up with more of a finished dashboard like this. Now, I won't have time to build out the entire dashboard, but we'll show you how we can build out some good analytics. So I'm going to start by with a table of data. And I could go all the way back and connect. I'm connecting to Snowflake, by the way, in this demo environment, but could just as easily be Databricks, BigQuery, Redshift, any of the familiar cloud data warehouses, Postgres, et cetera. And so here you can see I'm connected to this hands-on lab data. Now this is almost 5 million rows, 22 columns of data. So this is even bigger than something that you could use and do exploration in Excel or any other spreadsheet. Now, before I even start my analysis, I may want to figure out whether I've got any data quality issues and whether my data is fit for purpose. So I can do things like I can query my data and say, hey, I'm looking at a date column. Are there any max dates that are in the future which would represent potential data quality issues? Or maybe not data quality issues, but am I looking at data that would give me the insights that I expect? So is my data well distributed across different columns of data? Or maybe if it's a measure, I may want to look and say, hey, is what's statistically, how's my data distributed? So everything looks good. When I'm going to click Explore. And when I click Explore, what happened, I opened this table, a metadata copy of this table within a workbook. Now, a workbook within Sigma is the one and only user interface capability that you need to worry about. So I don't need to start with a table and create a visualization and promote that to a worksheet or a dashboard or anything like that. In fact, this dashboard that we looked at here, this nice pretty dashboard, is just a number of different worksheets or pages within a workbook. And we basically made visualizations, made them pretty, moved them around, added text, what have you. So we work with a lot of customers who have tried other BI tools, and their end business users ultimately say, can you just export this data, give me an exported data, and I want to put it into Excel or into Google Sheets. And when I ask them, what are you doing with the data? Why do you want to export it? What do you want to download it to a spreadsheet? There's usually 1, 2, 3, and or 4 use cases. The first is they may want to create their own measures. So here I'm going to create a revenue column, and it's simply quantity times price. Now, I'm about to hit enter and calculate this, but I want to, something subtle is going to happen that I want to make explicit. You saw that answer came back instantaneously. The reason for that is not only do we generate optimized SQL for, in this case, Snowflake, we actually have capabilities built in. When I opened this table within the browser, it brought a few thousand rows encrypted in the browser cache. And we've got a tool we call Alpha Query that says, hey, I can go calculate one column times another and give you an answer without having to go back and burn a credit on the backend database. And so that was an example. I'll give you another example. I'll create a cost of goods sold. And cost of goods sold is equal to my revenue minus my quantity times cost. And when I hit enter, you'll see again that it happened instantaneously. So using Alpha Query. Now, another reason that users often want to export data and put it into a spreadsheet is maybe not all of the data that they want to use is available to them in the cloud data warehouse, or maybe the way the data is modeled in the CDW is not the way I as a business user want to see it. So I've got an example here where we've got 22 columns, including a region and a state column. Maybe our organization's been growing rapidly over the last couple of years, and we added a layer called district. And unfortunately, our point of sale ETL has not added district into our cloud data warehouse yet. So how would I do analysis by district over the last year if I don't have it in the database? Well, I've got a mapping document that maps regions to states to districts, but it's sitting on my laptop via CSV. If I weren't using Sigma, I'd have to pare this down to below 1 million records, export it, bring that mapping into a spreadsheet, and then do a VIA lookup and do a pivot table to get that answer. Here, I'm going to do everything I just mentioned, but I'm going to do it all within Sigma, the data never leaving Snowflake. So I'm going to upload a CSV file. and I've got a mapping document on my desktop. I can look at it and see my regions, my managers, my districts, my states. When I click save, you're going to see it's going to take a second. Behind the scenes, what's happening is we're uploading that file as a permanent table within Snowflake. So I can use it for this analysis, but it's now available as a table in the database for me to use for other purposes. So for instance, here I can go and do a lookup the way I would in a spreadsheet, point to my new table, bring in my new district column, and I'm going to map by region and by state. And I get a visual cue that I've got 100% with no duplicates. And just like that, I brought in a net new column and mapped that into my data. I can now use that information to create a pivot table. And this is the third use case of why users love to use spreadsheets. Pivot tables are very easy to use and very powerful aggregators of data. Here, I can actually take my new district column that I brought in, put it in the rows. For the values, maybe I want to bring in that new revenue column that I created on the fly. And for the columns, I want to bring in my date column, but it's day of date is, this is point of sale data, so it's at a day level. I really only want it at a year level, just truncate it up to a year level. And issue, I'm not sure what happened, but I've got multiple values. I'm not sure what I did wrong there. Let me delete that and see if I've got, start this over again. Truncate to a year and have my values for my revenue. All right, not exactly sure what's happened, but we'll come back to that. So the last thing I wanted to show is our ability to write back. I've already shown you one example of that by uploading this CSV. Another example of it, another way to look at this is being able to add columns and add information that I, as a business user, may want to see and add value to add to the data, and then be able to save that in the database for further analysis. So for instance, maybe I've got my revenue, and by date, we'll truncate that to a year. And we'll add we'll add cost in there, just start from there. And now let me keep only, so let me filter out for just 1 year. And let's say that I wanted to, I am just messing this up. Hold on. Sorry, folks. Region, store region, and do it that way. So now I've got my sales by region for by year and for just last year. Let's say that I wanted to allow my region managers to go in and actually forecast. Okay, based on last year, what are you going to do this year? Again, if I were not using Sigma, I'd have to export this pivot table to Excel, send it around to each of my region managers, have them fill that out, gather all their responses together, consolidate them, add them back through ETL into the data warehouse if I want to do analysis on it. Here, I can do all of that and keep the data in Sigma and in Snowflake. So I'm going to take and create what we call a linked input table, which is just a fancy way of saying, go give me one or more columns from the database. And again, I just did some costs, but imagine if this was the revenue column that I created earlier. And now let me go and add a new column in, and we'll change that column to a number. And we'll say, you know what, don't tell me what you're going to do next year. Just tell me what you're going to do in terms of a percent increase or decrease. I'll go and calculate on the fly what that means in terms of forecast revenue. And so now the users, oh, let me actually create that formula. That's equal to last year times 1 plus our increase or decrease, and gives us our response. And so now users can come in here and just put in a value and actually have it forecasted. Now, behind the scenes, just like when I uploaded that CSV file, behind the scenes, what we're actually doing is creating a permanent table in Snowflake where we're saving this data together. Now, that's got a couple of implications. One, I can actually now go and visualize the data at the same time I'm actually entering data in. I could actually go in and visualize my last year versus my forecast as I'm entering it in. One other implication is the fact that we don't save just the current value in each row in that table. We actually have a couple of special columns that we maintain, and we actually maintain every update to this table over time. So obviously I didn't mean 400%, I meant 4%. I can now see that the timestamp changed, showing that I've got a new value. So although the user interface only shows the most current value, we actually keep all changes to the table to those rows. So I could continue on and show and build up more and more to the point that we get to this nice finished state. One last thing I want to highlight before I let you go is everything that I've shown you so far, this ability to work with data, to drill on data, to work with tables of data is not only available to users of Sigma, but can be embedded within a customer's portal. So for instance, if you're a company that actually provides analytics to your end customers, you can embed as much or as little of the capabilities and functionality I've shown you as an embedded capability. So for instance, Plugs Electronics is the fictitious retailer that I've been showing you data for, the point of sale data. Now, obviously, an electronics retailer has to get their product from somewhere. In our case, we get a couple of suppliers or wholesalers that provide that data to us, that product to us. They've built a portal that they make available to their wholesalers to see how are they doing. What I'm looking at is a custom portal. Here on the left, this menu, and across the top, this menu is provided by the portal itself. And maybe they've got an order entry system that shows the recent orders. These visualizations across the top and down here are all provided by Sigma. We've got the ability through APIs then to integrate our visualizations with their backend system. So for instance, I can click on Lucy Daniels and get a profit snapshot, which is coming from Sigma. Or maybe on the other side, I only want to look at photography equipment, and you can see that we send back a message and it filters out their recent orders on that side. I can even get to the point, if I want to, where I can provide my end customers the ability to literally start from scratch, and I can curate what data they can see and what they can do, but they can do exactly what you saw me demo earlier, where I can go and create a data and do analytics. So you can provide this to your customer. It's a great way to monetize the data that you've got. Maybe you offer a freemium. You offer something like I showed at the beginning where they can view some information, but then you offer an upsell charge where you can actually allow them to create their own analytics on their data. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are any questions that have come in the chat. It looks like there was not any questions, but one comment that you got me at right back. I would love to spend more time. I did not think to provide my contact information, but I'm actually going to go back to my workbook and reshare. I believe I can reshare. So I am going to go back here and say if anyone has any questions that they want to get in touch with us, do a further demo, We do have offices all over the world now. The United States, of course, is our headquarters, but we also have opened EMEA operations based out of London. I'd be happy to get anybody in touch with the right folks. If you want to just send me a note at bill@sigmacomputing.com, I'll make sure you get routed to the right place. If there aren't any other questions, I'll wrap a few minutes early and give you some time back for get ready for the next presentation. I've enjoyed it. Hope you have as well. Thank you.